imagine that I'll just give you my personal perspective. I have long felt that bringing in some independent expertise to assist in this process is very much called for. And I rely on my experience of having worked personally on the first two accountability and transparency review teams, where I think as devoted and as informed as we were as a group, we still found it hard to even conceptualize and articulate some of these broader questions, almost metaphysical questions of accountability, and deal with them in an appropriate fashion. So part of the frustration I think we as members of the accountability teams had, both in 2010 and 2013, that's partly reflected in my support and strong belief that bringing in some new thinking, some thinking from outside of the ICANN community will be helpful, because we can't get this one wrong. Once the United States steps away, and this is what I've been hearing from Congress in my hearings that we've had since the announcement was made in March, and that I've heard from members of the community and I've heard from outside folks, that there's a lot of concern about, well, what does it mean for the United States to step away? What will it mean to this organization? What threats does it open up to this organization that perhaps have not existed before because of the presence of the United States in this stewardship role? And these are important questions, and we need the broadest thinking and the broadest approach possible in terms of making sure that these proposals, as they're developed, have thought through all the issues. I mean, Steve Del Bianco gets the credit for having brought out the concept of stress testing. And that's critical to this, because at the end of the day, when this comes back into Washington to be evaluated and accepted, there will be an awful lot of people who are going to have a lot of opinions about this, including folks up on Capitol Hill and folks in the administration and the public more generally. So they're going to want to see that all of the contingencies have been identified, they've been thought through, and that no new problems have been created in terms of the solutions that are being proposed. So I welcome the opportunity to help select some people to participate in this process who hopefully will bring that additional perspective to assist the group overall in working through these issues. I just wanted to mention, to the extent there was any confusion about whether this work stream was related to the IANA transition work stream, I think I have been consistent from the start when it first emerged that there needed to be two work streams, that these had to be connected. From the perspective of the United States government, again, a lot of the concerns deal with these questions of what might happen to ICANN when the U.S. government steps aside. They are pivotal to the ultimate success and completion of the U.S. government transition. So from the start, I've always believed that these had to be linked, and we've said so, and I believe I've said so publicly before that. At the same time, I think it's important that the focus of the group really be confined to the question of what does it mean for accountability purposes that the United States government is stepping aside. I've seen in some of the discussions that this opens up issues about ICANN budgeting processes and other matters that, quite frankly, I believe are better dealt with at the Accountability and Transparency Review Team. Those are very intensive, long-term processes. Those of us who have participated on it devoted, upwards of a year on each of those teams to take input from the community and to make recommendations back to ICANN management and the ICANN board. And it seems that that's the right place to take on these more operational and day-to-day issues. I think this accountability team's got challenges enough, just starting with the question of what does it mean for the U.S. government to step away without layering onto this a bunch of additional questions that are better handled elsewhere. And so this process should not be viewed as something to replace or add to or augment the existing processes. As I mentioned before, the stress testing is going to be absolutely important in this. And people can think up, Could there be a hostile takeover of the ICANN board in the absence of the U.S. government? Could governments somehow come together to take over ICANN? And those things all need to be thought through. Processes need to be evaluated and a determination made as to what, if anything, might need to be added to the existing accountability processes. Then I'm going to close with the last point, which is it's absolutely critical that what comes back to us whenever this process is completed or the two processes are completed is a proposal or recommendation that has been developed through an open and transparent process that's engaged anybody who wants to participate, and that we end up with a document or a proposal that reflects the consensus of the community. So I've heard questions raised about, well, what happens if the board rejects it and we need an appeal process and all that? I urge the community that while people might worry about that, that's failure if we get to that point. We can't have a proposal coming into us in the United States that reflects a certain amount of continuing division, dissension, which is really important to get everybody involved here at the front. So I applaud Fadi and Steve for saying, let's step back for a little bit and make sure everybody gets on the train starting out, because we have to operate in that fashion. And at the end of the day, the community's got to come together with something that holds together, but it's been done in a very thoughtful and thorough manner and represents the consensus view of the community. Because if it isn't, there's a good chance that there may be some intervention by people in Washington that perhaps aren't as strong and supportive of this transition being completed. And the way to prevent that from happening is to make sure we get a consensus proposal that answers all of the issues anybody could possibly raise about this. Thank you.